We've already spent some time discussing what goes on in a judge's head as she thinks about how she's going to decide a case and what to say in support of her decision. You'll recall that traditional theories of judicial deliberation see the process as driven primarily by the particular rules of law that apply to the case at bar. Traditional theories say that judges identify the rules and apply them to the facts of the case. Some writers reject this claim as making unrealistic assumptions about judicial psychology. They suggest that judges respond primarily to the particular facts of the case, rather than the legal rules. But there's another more basic way to challenge the idea that legal reasoning is driven by rules of law. This is the challenge of the rule skeptic. A rule skeptic denies that rule-driven decisions are even possible. Legal rules, she claims, are to some degree indeterminate. Philosophers distinguish between two respects in which a rule might be indeterminate, corresponding to the traditional distinction between metaphysics, the study of what exists, and epistemology, the theory of knowledge. Philosophers draw a corresponding distinction between two kinds of indeterminacy, metaphysical and epistemological. To illustrate the difference, imagine a law that says no vehicles are allowed in the park. How would that law apply to motorized bicycles or mopeds? Do mopeds count as vehicles under this law? If there's a definite yes or no answer to this question, then the law is metaphysically determinate in this regard. If there's not a definite yes or no answer to this question, then the law is metaphysically indeterminate regarding whether a moped is a vehicle. In that case, the proposition that the moped is a vehicle is not true, but the proposition that the moped is not a vehicle is also not true. There is, as philosophers say, no fact of the matter about whether a moped is a vehicle under the statute. That is metaphysical indeterminacy. Metaphysical indeterminacy contrasts with merely epistemological indeterminacy. Suppose the law is not metaphysically indeterminate after all. There is a fact of the matter about whether the moped is a vehicle. However, the law could still be epistemologically indeterminate. The answer to the moped question would be unknowable to us. Lawyers and other practical folks often treat epistemological indeterminacy as tantamount to metaphysical indeterminacy because they're not interested in unknowable truths. But philosophers try to keep these types of indeterminacy straight. For now, let's ignore the distinction between metaphysical and epistemological indeterminacy. Let's turn our attention to the views of radical rule skeptics, who claim that law is indeterminate in all cases. Consider the question whether a four-door sedan counts as a vehicle under the law. You might be surprised to learn that radical rule skeptics deny that we can know the answer to this question. They make this claim despite the fact that a sedan seems like an obvious example of a vehicle. Radical rule skeptics insist that the correct answer to this question is unknowable, even if the lawmakers actually had sedans in mind when they made the law. What can we make of such global indeterminacy claims? H.L.A. Hart rejects global indeterminacy, both metaphysical and epistemological. The statute prohibiting vehicles in the park really does ban sedans, according to Hart, and we can know this fact. The sedan is an easy case. By the same token, a raspberry popsicle is not a vehicle under the statute. That's an easy case too. But there are also hard cases, such as the moped. In hard cases, the law is indeed indeterminate, according to Hart. This is to say that Hart accepts a moderate version of rule skepticism. Moderate rule skepticism has some significant implications. Consider the fact that legal systems in the English-speaking world follow the doctrine known as stare decisis. Stare decisis refers to the idea that judges should give at least some weight to how previous judges have decided. They should make an effort to decide similar cases similarly, to follow legal precedents. One implication of moderate rule skepticism is that judges in systems that embrace stare decisis are actually making new law when they decide hard cases. The older view of judges as merely discovering the law, rather than creating it, is not entirely correct according to Hart. It's also worth noting the logical relationship between indeterminacy and the realist thesis that judging is driven by facts, not rules. If the rules are indeterminate with respect to a given case, then it's impossible for a judge to decide on the basis of the rules. So indeterminacy entails that judging is not entirely rule-driven. The converse doesn't hold. If judging is actually fact-driven, that doesn't entail indeterminacy of any kind. It entails at most that judges are ignoring the rules or not applying them correctly. The problem lies in the judges, not in the rules.